All right, welcome back to our channel, or if you are new here, welcome for the first time. We have our first official tiny house update for you, and I'm so excited.
I am so excited to fill you in on what we've been doing so far, what decisions we've made, just the process leading up to all this.
So let's dive in to give a little backstory, assuming you know, but if you don't, there is a whole playlist of videos about this, so you can go watch and catch up as well. But to give a little bit of backstory, we bought a property back in 2022, I guess, in the spring of 2022. A waterfront property on one of the Gulf Islands in BC, and with the eventual plan of building on it, and we haven't done anything with it yet, but that is all about to change.
Our property is mid-bank waterfront, 1.5 acres of beautiful forest with views of the ocean. This has been an absolute dream of ours to build on the Gulf Islands here in BC, and we still can't believe it's coming true.
We've decided to start the process of building a tiny house with a builder in BC. They'll do the whole build off-site, and then they'll just bring it on over to our property and park it, and we'll plug it in. It's all the things that we have to set up. So that's also part of the process. There's going to be the build, and then there's also going to be the site prep, basically. And those are the two things that will happen kind of simultaneously to get everything ready for the delivery date, which should basically just be like a plug and go, and then ready to enjoy it.
Yeah, so hopefully that will be in spring of 2025. That is what we're aiming for right now. And to give a bit of a backstory, we've mentioned this before as well, just why we ended up going with a tiny home, but there's a bunch of reasons. Essentially, we do want to build a whole house on the land eventually, one day. That is what we want to do. But at this stage of our life, and while we're traveling so much, it doesn't make sense to do that right now. As time went on over the past couple of years, we found that we do really want to be able to utilize that space and go out there and enjoy it. And so we toyed with a lot of different ideas of putting like just an RV there or a camper van or something. And basically, the more we thought about it, the more we thought we really want something that we can actually go comfortably live in for weeks at a time.
And versus like camping, basically.
Exactly, because we could do that, but in terms of actually going and spending time there and working and like really enjoying ourselves, we need something that is actually comfortable to live in. And that is kind of how we kept coming back to the idea of tiny home.
So when we went to visit the tiny house builder in BC, we got to see their warehouse. We got to see several different models in different stages of where they are in the build process, which was great. One of the biggest things we wanted to kind of get a feel for was just the space itself, like how tiny is tiny, and how we might be able to actually live comfortably in one of those spaces for extended periods of time, for decent stretches of time. So, you know, knowing that we could live and work and just be there and have it be something that really works for us. And we walked away from viewing those houses, and we definitely knew that that is something that we could do, and the space and how things are laid out and how functional everything is definitely would work for what we're looking for.
I would recommend to anyone thinking of doing something like this to go and look at tiny homes in person. I think that's so important. And obviously for what we're looking for, it's part-time living. We don't need to store all of our belongings there because we do have a condo in the city. But going and seeing them in person just gave us a way better idea of how much space we would actually need, because that was the main thing we were trying to figure out. Like, how big is 28 feet versus 38 feet? Like, how much space do we actually feel like we need?
Yeah, we really wanted to get a sense of what the square footage would feel like in a tiny house, because you are constrained with the width of it. Being certified as an RV, it is only 8.5 feet wide, so 300 square feet. If you're looking at one of the bigger models, it's going to feel different in an 8.5 foot wide space versus like a square room.
Definitely. So going and seeing them in person was so helpful. Right away, I think we realized how big we wanted to go, what size we wanted to do, and the things that were important to us in terms of layout. So we'll get into all of that. Basically, after we went and met with the builders in person and looked at all the tiny homes in person, it was really just a matter of weeks before we kind of made the decision to move ahead with it. And then we had to kind of get everything in line right away to put a deposit down so they could get the trailer on order, the trailer that the tiny home will actually sit on, and to kind of just secure our spot in line. So that all kind of happened back in September. From then until now, we've just been kind of in the first phase of what the build process looks like, so we can walk you through kind of the different phases and basically where we're at up until now.
Yeah, Summit has been amazing for laying out the timeline, being very organized, which we love,
Yes.
and just kind of laying it all out so we know what we have to do now and what's to kind of come later. So first thing that we had to do was decide on not even necessarily the model, but we needed to decide on the size
Yes.
because they needed the trailer, which of course is going to depend on
Yeah.
the total length of the tiny house.
That's true. So that's the first decision we had to make. We were pretty sure that we wanted to go with one of the models that we saw in August when we went to the warehouse, but we also wanted to be sure. So we looked at every possible layout, everything we could possibly do to make sure that we didn't see anything that we liked better than that.
Including a custom,
Including-
like fully custom,
Yeah.
gooseneck, all sorts of things.
Yeah, because they can also do a fully custom build, which is really cool. Another reason why we went with them, thinking we may go that route. And you can also do so many customizations within a model that you choose. But a lot of tiny home builders, you get what you get. You have a few models to choose from, and that's kind of it. We really loved that Summit was just so open to like anything that you wanted to do. So we looked at all possible layouts, knowing the things that we prioritize because everyone has a different priority, right? Like maybe having a huge kitchen is what you want. Maybe having a really amazing bathroom with full bathtub is what you want. Maybe you want to have lots of sleeping space depending on how many people you have. Like it's different for everyone, whether you need tons of storage or whatever. So in terms of our needs, we knew that we wanted a good sleeping space for the two of us, as well as additional sleeping space for either guests or if we use this as a rental down the line. So 2 sleeping spaces essentially. We knew we wanted to have a comfortable living space. We wanted to have a great kitchen. We wanted to have a bathroom that didn't feel too small. And with all those things, we really felt like we could get that in one of the models that we saw, but we wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything else that would give us all those things in a better way.
Yeah, so we definitely explored some options like going more of the custom route where we could really just completely design it exactly the way we wanted it and try to, make it a little bit bigger with a gooseneck option. Ultimately, there's a reason why they have the models that they do. They are very well designed.
Yeah.
The layout is great.
And there are only so many things you can do, right? Like with
Yeah.
that amount of space, you're not really going to come up with any revolutionary ideas. Like there's only so much you can do.
They've also tweaked these throughout the years. So we definitely feel comfortable going with one of the basic models that they have already laid out,
Yeah.
with the option of changing things here and there for how we want to customize it. So we're actually kind of doing, I think pretty much like a lot of people do this when they go with this builder, is that they take a base model and then they make customizations as they go, which is a great option. It's nice to be able to have, customized features and certain elements and things to their already kind of tried and true models.
Definitely. So the first decision we made was, it felt like the biggest decision because we needed to decide on the
And you're
size.
locked in, right? When
And
you have the
that's it.
size
Yeah.
and the layout for the most part, you're pretty locked into that.
Yeah. So there was a little anxiety around like, oh my gosh, now we actually have to make these like huge decisions. But we feel really good about it. So we did decide to go with the boho model from Summit Tiny Homes. And it was one of the ones that we looked at. So you may remember, it's not the design that we will do, but it is essentially the basic layout. The reason why we really like the boho, for a lot of reasons, like from a design perspective, we like something that's modern, but not something that's so modern that
So
it's the really,
minimalistic.
exactly like that Scandinavian style that's like almost like just not as warm and inviting. But then there are other models that are so warm and inviting that they were almost a little too
Rustic.
exactly. So this was kind of right in the middle, and thankfully we have really similar taste in terms of
Yes, there have not been any major
No.
headbutts in terms of design choices
Yeah.
and things like that so far. So that's
so
great
far so
news.
good. We were both immediately just like, this one feels good.
Yeah,
And it's really cool that we saw it in person and walked through it and felt
definitely.
what the space felt like and how much space it was and all of that.
One of the things we really liked about that one in particular was it had the stairs going up to the main loft in the back. So instead of having the stairs kind of across from the kitchen, making that space in the kitchen feel a little bit smaller, the stairs were tucked away and it really felt like it opened up the space. So
Yeah.
we immediately liked that. That was the only model that we saw with that layout. And that was a key thing that we really, really liked.
Yeah, and we decided it was important to us to have a main floor bedroom. A lot of what we've seen online, it's pretty typical to have the sleeping space in the loft And a lot of people say that they regret not doing main floor bedroom just for accessibility and comfort and so many reasons. We really, really like that this model has both a main floor bedroom with like full ceiling height. It feels really spacious, really comfortable, and a sleeping area in the loft. And they are on opposite sides of the home. So if you do have guests, or if you do a rental down the line and there's people staying with a family and there's kids and whatever, like you're on opposite ends for your sleeping space. I think that's really important.
You're not right on top of each other.
Exactly. Literally like right on top of each other. So that was just such a unique layout that I really liked, and we couldn't find anything else that had that.
We really liked that the living space was really open. Like I said, with the stairs being on the side, it really felt like you had just like an open, kind of free-flowing kitchen, living room area. And it definitely felt spacious because we went with something that was a little bit bigger in length. So that extra space gives us more room in the living room, and then also the bathroom, which is definitely important.
Yes, I felt strongly about having a big enough bathroom that you have some good storage, you have a proper sized shower. That was definitely a must-have for me. The boho that we looked at would have been 36 feet in length, so I don't think they're doing that one anymore. They're doing all the bohos in 37.5 feet, so that is what we're doing, 37.5 feet long, which gives you a proper size bathroom. You can fit a full standard size bathtub in there. We are going to do a walk-in shower, but a really spacious bathroom with proper storage, and I just felt so strongly about that. So that was another reason why I really like this model.
For me, definitely having a nice, big, spacious kitchen with room for storage, of course, but also the appliances that we want. So a nice gas stove, an oven, and dishwasher.
And like proper size.
Proper size, yeah. The dishwasher, we're looking at doing a drawer dishwasher, which is actually what we have in our condo already. So very used to that.
Yeah.
So that's great. And also a big farmhouse sink that's beautiful and works so nicely with the space. That perfect blend of what we were talking about, not too rustic, but cozy and also modern at the same time.
One of the other things we felt strongly about was having a good dining space. That's really tricky to do in a tiny home. Usually you don't have space for a dining table or anything like that. In the model that we looked at, everyone had kind of done something differently in terms of either like a countertop like seating, bar stools, or some people had just done like extra cabinetry on that side. And so that was the one thing that we weren't sure that we wanted, but in talking to the builder, they were like, you can basically do whatever you want. Like, do you have any other ideas? Here are some other things we've done for other clients. And they had done one that was like a dinette style seating, which reminded me of the bus that we stayed in that I really loved. So it's like two seats facing one another and
With a little table.
with a little table. And so it works for a dining space. It works for just another sitting space.
We loved this converted double-decker bus that we stayed in recently, and we're so excited to do a similar style dinette seating in our tiny house. Having additional seating is going to be so helpful and just help the whole space function better for us.
That was the first big decision, which we feel really good about. Once we decided on that, everything else felt a lot easier. That was kind of the biggest one that we had to do.
Then from there, it was kind of minor adjustments and things like that.
Yeah, so we are still in the first phase. There's kind of 3 phases to this whole thing. And yeah, working with a builder is just so helpful because they really lay it all out. They've done this so many times. They're used to, you having a million questions and not knowing how it's all going to work. And they just immediately put us at ease and, let us know that they would walk us through the whole thing and that this is what they do. So there are basically 3 phases. We are in the first phase right now. So we have put down both our deposit and our first installment of the payment. There are 3 installments total. And the first phase is just kind of getting the trailer ordered, figuring out the layout, starting to make some design decisions, and doing kind of the first orders of like the window package and the wall systems and getting a couple of those big things decided, which is what we're working on now, and we can talk more about that. The second phase is when they actually start building, which is exciting. So we're not there yet. That'll be when we put our next big chunk of money down. That'll be coming soon probably.
And that also includes more of the design choices, things like tile and paint colors and stuff like that. So we are kind of looking at some of that already, just to kind of get ahead of it, but none of those decisions have to be made just yet, which is good.
Yeah, we do have time, which is nice. And then we will have the opportunity, if we want, to go and look at it before it's completely finished. I think we probably will want to do that, and we'll have to just see logistically getting up there to check things out and see it in person. But I feel like we will want to do that.
Yeah, it's exciting
Um,
too. So
Yeah, and it's nice that they give you that opportunity. And then basically you pay the final installment when everything is done. It'll depend on timeline of how it all goes, but we are aiming for early spring of 2025. And then once it's all finished and it's all been paid, they basically deliver it to your property. So that's kind of the whole process.
we also started thinking maybe what we might want is an auxiliary building, like a backyard office kind of setup to allow us to have more of a workspace. That was one of the big things we wanted to have was, you know, the dinette is great for sitting and doing a little bit of work on the laptop, but I think what we really needed to make the space functional and to be able to actually spend some time there and get work done was to have a bit more of a designated space, and doing a backyard office, doing like an office pod would really allow us to do that. So luckily this builder also has done something like that and had some renderings that we could look at. We knew that we wanted to do something like this, and then we kind of figured that we would look at all the design choices and kind of do that once we figure out what we want to do in the house, and then we can kind of supplement with the auxiliary space.
Yeah, I feel like in the home itself, the only thing we're not able to get in that size is a proper office space. I remember back when we first started thinking about what we wanted to do, we were thinking an RV situation and then thinking maybe like a dome or something as an office. So this was something we always figured we would want to do, have something that's a separate space, and to also just have that separation between our living space and our workspace. I really like the idea of that. We haven't really started the process on that and figuring out what we want to do in terms of the design. We'll do that after we're finished with the home, but it'll basically be an office space for both of us, a kind of flex space that could also be an additional sleeping space for guests, which is really exciting to, again, have that separation. If we have, you know, friends, family come visit us, it's just a nice additional option to kind of have some space.
Another benefit of having that auxiliary space is for doing rentals. It would be a place that we could have, you know, storage for our things or extra cleaning supplies or things like that. So it really does provide a lot of options for what we can do with kind of the whole space.
For sure. It opens things up a lot. We've definitely found we've done lots of rentals in the past. Our condo in Vancouver is a part-time home and a part-time rental, and it wouldn't work if we didn't have space in the condo that we could lock off and put our belongings. I'm very excited to include that. So those are basically the first decisions we made. So going with 37.5-foot boho model of the tiny home and deciding that we were going to do an office pod as well.
So those are the relatively easy decisions and things that we had to make.
They didn't feel easy.
Not necessarily the decisions being easy, but the process is easy because the builder's making it very straightforward and guiding us through the whole thing.
Yeah.
In terms of getting the site prepped, we are kind of on our own for that, and we are trying to figure out exactly what needs to happen, who to hire, and just, you know, how it will all kind of come together at the same time and in time for the house to be delivered. So basically the three things on the property that need to kind of be prepared for the house to be delivered. Biggest one is the septic system. We are not on a sewer line, so we do need a septic for waste disposal. That's the big one. The other one is power. Luckily, we do have power lines that run through the property, and BC Hydro has been very helpful so far in helping us figure out exactly, you know, what we need to give them and everything like that. And then one of their crew members will come out and just set up a box for power. So that seems like a pretty straightforward one.
And not that expensive.
And not that expensive. Yeah, that's also good. And then last is our well. We do have a drilled well, but of course we do need to get the water from the well into a system that can be plugged into the house. So we'll need a well pump and basically like a hose setup system to get water access. I think before getting that system in place, we'll need to pump out the water, get it tested, make sure everything's good to go. Probably install some sort of a filtration system if needed. And then just like that, we should be ready to go.
Yeah, these are the things that feel a little more daunting, I think. Obviously, when we bought the property, we took all these things into consideration, and we knew there are properties that have no services in place at all. So we knew that we were getting a bit of a head start in having a well already in place and having power lines going through the property already, and knowing that the septic would be the big one that we would kind of have to do from scratch. So we knew all of that, and that's always been a part of the plan. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, figuring out, how much is it going to cost? How logistically do we get it all done in terms of getting people to the islands to get it done? I'd say this is the part that I'm probably feeling the most stressed about, because it's also not as fun as like picking out tiles.
Septic isn't as fun.
It's not as fun. So I don't know if any of you have done anything like that before. That part definitely feels new. We did a big renovation on our house in Niagara, so we're not new to like construction projects, but you do learn as you go, right? And like we learned a lot through that experience.
And I'm sure we'll be experts on septic systems after this.
Exactly.
So we can answer all your questions.
Yes, but if
this
any
whole
of you are experts on septic systems, if any of you have knowledge, that would be helpful.
The ball is rolling. We have contacted a few different people to kind of get a sense of what the scope of the work might be, timeline. Luckily, in BC, we're not dealing with, the rest of Canada kinds of winters where basically any digging is out of, you cannot do anything like that through the winter. I'm guessing that shouldn't be a problem, come February. So we should be able to get that work done before the house would get delivered. So, that's the plan. And same thing with getting the water and the power and all of that. I'm sure it'll all work out. That part definitely feels a little bit scary, but the rest feels exciting, so it kind of balances each other out.
We'll end it there for today, but we have more updates coming soon with some of the fun design decisions that we've started making for the house. Be sure to leave any questions you have for us in the comments so we can answer them in a future video. We're so excited to share this whole process with you. We have a long way to go, but we know it's going to be incredible when it's all finished. So make sure you're subscribed to our channel and stay tuned for the second part of this update coming soon.